Hello there again, friends. I haven't really taken a trip up to northern Ohio in a little bit, north besides Marion, so I figured I'd do one today. I took this trip with Rex Woods on New Year's Eve 2022. We ran between Attica Junction, Willard, and eventually back down to Marion. Our first train that we caught was this westbound loaded grain train on the CSX Willard sub at Attica Junction. Never could hear this guy's ID over the radio. It's possibly the crew could have been mumbling or the radio just wasn't working right. Based on him being loads, I'm not exactly sure where this guy would be going. He'd either be turning south at Fostoria or possibly could turn north. Or he could be going west straight on to Chicago to another railroad. Afterwards, Rex told me he wanted to check out Willard Terminal, but as on the way in, we heard M634 departing, so we ran east on the Willard sub to a place called Boughtonville. There's an old B&O milepost sticking out of the ground next to the tracks, but covered up with one of CSX's number plates. The gates and lights started flashing and going down for M634, daily eastbound manifest, trash empties, and sand and gravel loads for Selkirk, New York. Along the way, he'll lurk a landfill in Fostoria, and as well as Willard Terminal and Collinwood Yard in Cleveland, Ohio. Boughtonville used to have an old post office here that was built in 1891, but that was torn down in 1935. I'm not sure if there used to be a depot or a station here. If anybody can help me out with that, let me know down below in the comments. That'll be much appreciated. This train, once upon a time, used to be nothing but empty trash cars heading east out of Columbus as I believe Q740. These cars go to Selkirk, New York, where they're picked up now by the Q740 that runs between Selkirk and Oak Island, New Jersey. The cars will come back loaded and then be put on Q635, who runs to Columbus. The cars will be dropped off in Fostoria at a landfill, while the majority of them will go down to the Ohio Central in Columbus. They'll pick them up at Parsons Yard and then take them up to Newark, Ohio to get unloaded. .634 even had a nice DPU today as well. A single Union Pacific AC-45 CCTE working as distributed power near the end of the train. It would be a nice little surprise, for this train is not normally known for carrying foreign power. The last of this behemoth 634 slides on to the east, and me and Rex decided to head into Willard. There wasn't much happening in Willard today. Everything seemed to be peaceful and quiet. Willard was once a giant, busy 24/7 terminal for terminating and originating road freights. Now it just serves as a termination and an originating point for a few road locals like L339 and L340 between here and Columbus, and L321 and 322 between Newcastle and Willard. A couple GEs are seen over there sitting peacefully. What caught my attention was this 4-target dwarf signal, governing slow speed moves out onto the main line for possible switching or trains leaving the terminal after they have finished their work. The one thing that we did see moving was this CSX SD40-2 doing some yard work, shuffling around a couple auto racks. The 8383 began its life as CNO 7524 and SD40, and eventually became CSX SD40-2 painted in the gray stealth scheme, eventually getting into the YN2 and now into the YN3 scheme. On the west end of Willard was a yard job doing some switching work. The locomotives 2028 and 4381, if you look at the top of the cab, have amber strobe lights telling us that these are remote control locomotives. The crew has the option to actually be on board or on the ground with a box that they can use to control the locomotives to do their switching work.
You got Bravo there, Pat. 49, you're okay out on your zone when you're ready.
While we were there, we noticed an eastbound intermodal coming in from Fostoria. This train had come out of North Baltimore. We couldn't tell if this was either I-136 to Chesapeake, Virginia, or I-158 to South Kearney, New Jersey. He never did get his ID. The west end of Willard has now become one of my favorite spots. You can shoot west in open, unobstructed view towards Attica, and you can shoot east into the yard and onto the main line with unobstructed view. Section line road 30 flies overhead of the west end of the Willard yard, so if you really wanted to, you'd have an unobstructed open view for aerial shots and overhead shots. Midway into the train was CSX 871, a General Electric ES44ACH, running on a remote control from the head end. The next eastbound to arrive was this manifest train, although it didn't really look like a manifest train at first with the auto racks up front. Leading the way was a rebuilt CSX SD70AC and an ET44AH. Although many might believe this is some kind of weird ethanol train, it actually is a manifest train, as he had more manifests towards the back of it. Never did get his ID either on this one. This guy would go into Willard Yard to either tie down or do some work. We didn't really stick around long enough. We eventually ended up moving over back to Attica Junction because we heard on the radio that a 178 was approaching from the south. We decided to shoot 178 at the East Township Road 104 crossing just south of the Diamonds. The signal over on the right shows a high green, beckoning 178 to come across the diamond and head north towards Bellevue. 178 is daily manifest train from Irondale, Alabama to Bellevue, Ohio. And today, with a nice treat, 3 BNSF GEs. First one being an ET44C4, and the other 2 being ES44C4s. decided to go back up to the Diamonds and heard another northbound somewhere behind 178 calling signals. I believe this was 273 for Sandusky, or it could have been another train heading towards Detroit, Michigan. I believe that might have been 271. A nice surprise today was a Union Pacific GE leading the train northbound through the drizzling rain and the fog. The Sandusky line once upon a time used to be a branch line on the Pennsylvania. It used to be single track all the way to Sandusky solely to move coal trains up there. Right where Rex is standing, there actually used to be an interlocking tower that controlled movement across the Diamonds. That tower was torn down a long time ago, and no evidence of it remains other than a couple photos. We were about to start heading down towards Marion when we heard L339 calling signals heading west out of Willard, so we stood our ground at the Attica Diamonds. Leading the way was another ES44ACH, followed by a GP40-2 4-axle, which I believe might have been ex-Conrail. 339 is usually manifest and some gravel train traffic, some being dropped off at Cary, Ohio, while the rest goes towards Columbus. But today he's all low gons full of scrap and sand, and all these gravel cars full of sand and gravel. Nice little bit of a train here too. This is daily road local traffic from Willard, Ohio down to Parsons Yard in Columbus, Ohio. Some of the gravel cars will actually be picked up by the Wheeling Lake Erie. We decided to take a look at Chatfield, Ohio, another little town or village on the NS Sandusky line just south of Attica. This is where the Wheeling Lake Erie crosses the Sandusky line. We're just in time here for southbound NS train 28N, hot containers and trailers bound for Charlotte, North Carolina out of Chicago, Illinois, with two Norfolk Southern -944 CWs leading, and in the third position facing north was the NS 8098 Conrail Heritage locomotive. My personal favorite Heritage locomotive at that. Marion was really sleepy when we finally arrived. Just a couple locomotives sitting in the old Erie yard. Over on the left track, which used to be the ex-Erie Railway, is a high green signal telling M21630 loaded autoracks who had just got done working Marion to go east. In about another 2 or 3 days, this train will end up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where the racks will get unloaded in Greenwich Yard, and then the racks will come back as M217 empty back to Louisville, Kentucky to get loaded. Leading the way is an ES44DC and an ET44AH for power. Next eastbound on the Indy line was I-008, Rose Lake, Illinois to North Bergen, New Jersey, hot containers and trailers. Apparently this guy decided he didn't want to wait on a train and decided to go around the gates just before the train got there. I strongly advise nobody ever do this. It would just make things a lot worse if you get hit by the train. After I-008 cleared, Marion belonged to B410, southbound coal loads on the C&O out of Gibson, Indiana, headed for Newport News, Virginia. Being led today by a big ES44AH and an ES44DC. Now here's something you don't normally see every day in Marion. Two southbound Norfolk Southerns lined at the same time. Over on the left track shows a high green, while on the right track, the yellow over red is approach. Track left is signaling for 276, daily Chicago, Illinois to Norfolk, Virginia, intermodal, to head south. Right on his heels was 271, and another person decided to go in front of the train, clearly not thinking about the consequences of what could happen if he was struck. Fortunately, he got away, but it could have ended much worse. 271 is daily Detroit, Michigan to Norfolk, Virginia containers, with work stops in Sandusky, Ohio, and Rickenbacker Yard in Columbus, Ohio, on the south end of Columbus.
supposed to be faster than like 25. ATCS can't pick it up.
Well, so not a bad day at all. It was okay, decent weather. It wasn't really pouring down. We got finally check out Willard Yard. I can't express my concern enough. Please, please don't ever try to feel like you have to beat a train at a crossing. It's just going to make things a whole lot worse. You may get lucky once. The next time you could get hit, you'd be injured or something worse. Think about it. You're only endangering the lives of yourself, the engineer and the conductor, and the people's lives that might be in the car with you. Now, please hit the like button if you like this video. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you want to know when I post another video. And all I want to say is Happy New Year to you guys, and hope you all having a good year.